Hey, let's find out how Foghat got their name.
Okay, let's do that.
All right. Randy.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, my friend. All right. Share with us. We've got the drum roll going in our heads. How did Foghat get their name?
All right. Well, I can't guarantee this, but I heard it on possibly the Glover Show. It might have been Mark Close or maybe it was Casey some years back. Somebody on the radio was telling a story where Foghat, before they had chosen a name for the group, they had gotten together just hanging out and they were playing Scrabble. And one of the guys came up with the word Foghat. And they're going, it's not a word? Yeah, it is. No, it's not. And they get in a big argument about it. Then they all decided they liked the name. Hey, that's a great name for the group. So supposedly that's how it happened.
And the rest is history. I hope somebody trademarked that or copyrighted it or something. They probably did.
Yeah, really.
Randy, thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Happy New Year.
No problem. Take care. You too. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. So that's how Foghat got their name. Wasn't what
Scrabble.
I expected.
Who knew?
I was thinking it was a bunch of guys sitting around smoking something illegally and the smoke was around them.
I mean, sure, that would make sense.
And somebody said, hey, dude, that looks like a fog hat.
And it was totally the opposite. I'm just making up words at Scrabble, no worries.
Who knows? All right, our next guest, he has been on the show with me. This is my third time hosting, and this is the third time he's been on. Jason Rosenbaum is a political reporter. And this time, Jason, I'm going to actually read a little bio about you. Since entering the enticing world of professional journalism, who would have known journalism was enticing? In the mid-2000s, Jason Rosenbaum dove headfirst into the world of politics, policy, and even rock and roll music. A graduate of the University of Missouri School of Journalism, Rosenbaum spent more than 4 years in the Missouri State Capitol, writing for the Columbia Daily Tribune, Missouri Lawyers Media, and the St. Louis Beacon. Since moving to St. Louis in 2010, Rosenbaum's work appeared in Missouri Lawyers Media, the St. Louis Business Journal, and in the Riverfront Times music section. Mr. Rosenbaum, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm slightly embarrassed by you reading my bio.
The enticing world of politics.
Yeah, it's very enticing. It can also be exhausting and frustrating, but I thought enticing was a good adjective at the time. But hearing that out loud, I may have to edit that down a little bit.
I thought your agent wrote that for you.
Well, I mean, I don't have an agent as far as I know. If I have, then that would be a big surprise to me at this point.
And I learned something today. When are you a music critic? As long as you also like WWE, and I don't hold that against you, but you're also a rock critic now?
Well, there was a period of time I wrote for the Riverfront Times music section. I got paid a huge amount of money, $100 a week to write 5 blog posts. And I definitely bought a lot of Vitamin Water Zero with that money. In all seriousness, it was a lot of fun, and it was kind of a nice detour from the more serious world of Missouri politics to interview ornery rock stars, so to speak.
And talking about politics, there's a couple of articles that you wrote this week that I want to talk to you about a little bit. One of them was On the Trail, a look back at Missouri's eventful and exhausting political year. I know we can talk a lot about that. And one that really interested me was On the Trail After 8 Years, Nixon's governorship leaves important lessons. I am curious, and I think our listeners are very curious. What important lessons did Governor Nixon leave us these last 8 years?
Plenty. And even though he is a Democrat, and I assume most of the listeners are probably not Democrats.
It's not even that. We just think he's incompetent.
Well, I think that his 8 years showed that, number one, if you don't have unlikely political allies, namely Republicans, in an increasingly Republican state, you're probably not going to succeed as much as you want to. Mm-hmm. I think the other lesson, obviously, for better or for worse, is that Nixon was the crisis governor, and his actions reacting to natural disasters like the horrific tornado in Joplin were pretty well received. Obviously, his response to Michael Brown's shooting death was harshly criticized by pretty much everybody, Republicans, Democrats, everybody in between. And I think that he also had a genuine connection to outstate Missouri. If you look at the map, when he ran in 2008 and 2012, he won a lot of counties all over the state, something that Chris Koster was not able to replicate against Eric Greitens. So I think that he had a genuine connection with rural Missouri. Unfortunately for him and the Missouri Democratic Party, during his tenure in office, the Democratic Party pretty much collapsed in everywhere except St. Louis, Kansas City, and to some extent parts of Columbia.
Mm.
The Democrats don't have any legislators from outstate Missouri. It all happened during Nixon's tenure, and unfortunately for him, that's part of his legacy.
Tell me this, and I always felt that governors going to national disasters and things of that nature are something they should do naturally. I don't want to take credit away from Governor Nixon. He got a lot of plaudits from the Joplin tornado, but what exactly did he do that made people praise that so much for basically just doing his job?
I think, yeah, that's a good question, because one of the very basic functions of being governor is to react to natural disasters and get federal help when it's needed. And that would be a job whether it was, Bob Holden, Matt Blunt, or Eric Greitens in the next 4 years. I think what got Nixon a lot of praise at the time was he was at the scene pretty quickly. He got a lot of resources to what was a horrifying situation in Joplin. And I think that he used the resources of the state government paired with the federal government to help rebuild that town. I mean, Joplin is not a small city. It's probably, I think, in the top 10 or top 20 largest cities in Missouri, and it was basically destroyed by that tornado. And it was a huge undertaking to replace the damage. I don't want to give credit to Nixon completely for that, obviously, but he obviously served as kind of a person who was there to provide calm and leadership. And I think that's why there was such confusion why he didn't use that same type of approach when Ferguson happened. Right. And I think it's almost a paradox that he reacted pretty well to natural disasters, but during what some said was a human disaster in Ferguson and St. Louis in 2014, his administration doesn't get as high marks for that from either party.
I kind of feel for him a little bit because, Governor Nixon has reached the pinnacle of Missouri politics. I mean, he was a state representative. He was attorney general. He served 2 terms as governor. And because he didn't overly distinguish himself as governor, I mean, this is it. Now you take the ceremonial job at the law firm where you're not going to practice law. People are just basically using your name and using you as a partner. It just seems like it's kind of a come down for a guy that's been in Missouri politics for so long that, this is the culmination of his political career.
It could be, but I mean, it was a very successful political career for him. He was in statewide office for more than 2 decades. Not many people can say that. And even people who are pretty successful in passing a lot of policies, like Matt Blunt, don't always achieve tremendous political success. I mean, near the end of Matt Blunt's tenure in 2008, his approval ratings were not that high, even though he accomplished quite a bit as governor. In fact, his closing remarks when he announced he wasn't going to run again, he said that he accomplished pretty much everything he set out to do, which seems like hyperbole, but was basically true. But just accomplishing things didn't make him politically popular, even though a lot of the things that happened during his term didn't get undone during the J. Nixon administration, which kind of shows, like, even if you're not the most politically popular governor, you can still make an impact. And I think Eric Greitens is definitely going to be more in the mold of Matt Blunt in the sense that he's going to be able to pass a lot of his priorities really, really easily. It's just an open question whether they're going to achieve mass popular support over the next couple of election cycles. And if they do, I mean, Greitens will be able to accomplish a lot more than Nixon by the virtue of having a friendlier legislature.
Now, you have your nose to the grindstone, ears to the ground. You hear what's going on, Republican, Democratic politics. What are Democrats feeling about the end of Jay Nixon's governorship? Are they are they glad he's gone? Or they wish he would have done some more things? Maybe have reached out? Are they looking forward to another 4 years, another candidate? And do you have any inklings who maybe will run in 4 years for governor? Or is it a little too early for that?
I think it's too early, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Missouri Democrats are in a really bad place right now. They lost all their statewide elections, which means in 4 years they're going to be running against a bunch of incumbents for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, and treasurer. And it's very difficult to unseat an incumbent statewide office holder, with maybe the exception of governor. So they have that problem, and they don't have a very obvious bench of candidates to run against any of these people that won. And I know that Eric Greitens was not the most universally popular choice in that Republican primary. Obviously, when you have 4 candidates, it's going to divide the Missouri Republican Party, so to speak. But from having seen a bunch of his rallies and talked to a lot of supporters, he has a very energized group of people that are willing to work for him politically over the next 4 years. And he beat somebody in Chris Koster who was seen as invincible among many political people. So he's going to be formidable in 4 years, but a lot of it's going to depend on how his governorship is received. But a lot of it's going to depend on which Democrats step forward over the next 4 years, and they don't really have a lot of people to fill that void at the moment. And, it's going to be a challenge for them, and I think it's too early to say who's going to step up to that challenge.
The Cliff Notes version, because we got about a minute left, and I'm seriously curious about this. What happened to the Democratic Party? From when I started really getting involved in politics in like 2000, they had a sizable amount of people in the legislature, but now, they're super minorities in both houses of the legislature. I mean, what happened to them?
The Cliff Notes version is they lost their strongholds in traditionally Democratic parts of rural Missouri, and until they get that ground back, they're never going to gain significant amount of ground in the legislature, and they're going to have a lot of trouble winning statewide elections, especially in election cycles where rural turnout goes up, which is what happened in 2016. So they have a lot of work to do, and they don't have an obvious path out of the void.
One last thing, your other article, a look back at Missouri's eventful and exhausting political year. What would you say in 2016 was the most eventful or impactful Missouri political story?
Wow, it's a tough choice between like the Rams leaving and Bruce Franks beating Penny Hubbard, but I'm going to just have to go with the Donald Trump wave that swept Republicans into office up and down the ballot. It was a historic event for the GOP. I don't know if they'll ever achieve that level of success again, but if they do, it could mean that Missouri has permanently become a red state. I think that was obviously the most significant moment of the year.
And Claire McCaskill is in trouble?
I would never count Claire McCaskill out. A lot of people said she was in trouble in 2012. It's going to depend on which Republican gets that nomination in 2 years and whether McCaskill runs as efficient and as smart of a campaign as she did in 2012. We'll have to see, and we'll have to see what the national environment is.
Jason, always good to have you on, my friend. We always learn something, and love having you on because you really know what's going on in Missouri politics.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, to your wife and your young son. Hope you guys have a great year and a great Happy New Year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Bye.
I always like having Jason on. People give me a little business because he's liberal, and he comes from a liberal station. They're like, "Why you got him on here?" But he knows his stuff. I like him.